With mutiny in the Labour Party over a Gaza ceasefire, it looks like the British left are going to splinter and set up an Islamic political party in Britain. In fact, some people have already tried. I'll show you what it'll look like and why it's a great thing. Yeah, that's right, it's a great thing and I can't wait to vote for it. There ain't no party like an Islam party. I'm going to show what happened when Muslims got political power in America.
And we start with breaking news right now out of Hamtramck.
When they got power in Europe.
On va aboutir à un État islamique, pourquoi pas?
And of course what views the British one will be representing.
A guy that's going to take it in the backside at night.
And what Muslim-run areas of Britain look like now. And what the warnings are from people in the Muslim world.
We will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe.
There was an attempt at registering a British Party of Islam recently, but it was rejected because of the sort of spelling mistakes that can only come from generations of cousins marrying cousins. Hey, I'm not knocking cousin marriage, by the way. You've got to keep that farm in the family, and it makes Christmas shopping easier when your sister, wife, and uncle are all the same person. Look, I'm not judging. I'm from rural Scotland. My family tree is like a wreath and contains a suspicious number of sheep. High six, guys. Keep it in the valley. But the spelling mistakes. We are a party who has been created to help all of the minority in the land of Great Britain have a voice. We will make sure that all the problems which linger in the great country of Great Britain is defeated. Linger. There's nothing you can write on that allows words to be misspelled to this degree. This person had to overrule the automatic autocorrect to write this. Do you know the level of arrogance it takes to sit there looking at the red squiggly line and be like, by Allah, it is spelt this way. So this application was rejected, but dozens of British Muslim politicians have resigned from the Labour Party in disgust at Keir Starmer's refusal to call for a ceasefire. As Britain's Muslim population grows and becomes more emboldened, a party will be set up at some point, and if history and other evidence is anything to go by, it's going to be hilarious. In 2015, woke progressives helped the first ever Muslim council get elected in the United States in the city of Hamtramck in Michigan. The Muslim council immediately turned around and banned pride flags.
You don't see my family sitting there putting the flag and say, I'm going to put the Lebanese flag down your throat. You keep your flag, you want to put it at your house, put it at your house. Do not put it on city property and do not put it in our schools. Yes, sir. Nice and simple.
Much liberal screeching ensued.
It is clear that you are either ignorant or hateful and spiteful.
This might be a little on the nose for you, and if you don't like this poster, I do have another one. This is obviously we'll have to paint over the rainbow on the mural because that is a little too gay. But we will have the world in 2 straight miles, so it's a little bit it's covert.
Left-wing newspaper The Guardian reports on how that made progressives feel. They viewed the power shift and diversity as a symbolic but meaningful rebuke of the Islamophobic rhetoric that was a central theme of then Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump's campaign. This week, many of those same residents watched in dismay as a now fully Muslim and socially conservative city council passed legislation banning pride flags from being flown on city property that had, like many others being flown around the country, been intended to celebrate the LGBTQ+ community. Muslim residents packing City Hall erupted in cheers after the council's unanimous vote, and on Hamtramck's social media pages, the taunting has been relentless. In a tense monologue before the vote, council member Mohammed Hassan shouted his justification at LGBTQ+ supporters. I'm working for the people, what the majority of the people like. So the Muslim politicians allied with the progressives to get into power, but then once they were in power, they passed laws according to their own homophobic ideology. If only there had been some evidence of homophobic laws in the Muslim world to tip off the progressives. Still, at least you showed Trump, guys. I mean, you showed Trump that he's absolutely right.
We've had 3 flags torn off. I'm not teaching hate against Muslims. Muslims should not be teaching hate against gay people.
We go egg the flag. We gotta go egg the flag.
Really?
Yeah.
We supported you when you were threatened, and now our rights are threatened, and you're the one doing the threatening. I was nice to this crocodile, why is it now attacking me? There's a recurring theme of progressives assuming that tolerance is transactional, and if they support Islamists, the Islamists will definitely support them back when they're in power. Here's a recording of a teacher in Canada berating Muslim pupils for not supporting pride.
It goes 2 ways. If you want to be respected for who you are, if you don't want to suffer prejudice for your religion, your color of skin, your whatever, then you got to give it back to people who are different from you. That's how it works. It's an exchange. And it isn't like that in all countries. As I told you, in Uganda, literally, paint your day, they will execute you. If you believe that kind of thing, then you don't belong here. Because that is not what Canada believes. We believe in freedom. We believe that people can marry whomever they want. That is in the law. And if you don't think that should be the law, you can't be Canadian. You don't belong here, and I mean it.
It's interesting to see her start off as a progressive, and then as she works through her rant, she red pills herself, saying that other countries are extremely homophobic, and Canada is a country where people are free to do as they please. And if you don't agree, then you can't be a Canadian. Hey, we all get there at our own pace, sister. And soggy arse progressives support Islamist parties because it's empowering diverse minorities, and the first law of progressivism is that diversity equals strength.
I relocated from California to Hamtramck. That's really far away. And I did it because I thought it was a diverse community.
So Islamist parties have formed bizarre allegiances with progressives such as the Green Party, who have values completely at odds to them. It suits them now, but in the event of a caliphate being established across the West, I doubt that recycling and trans rights are going to be top of the agenda. Although, to be fair, ISIS did reduce the carbon footprint of many people by bombing them back to the Stone Age, and they combined two of the Green Party's objectives by recycling LGBTQ people as frisbees. Although, of course, the Muslim world is actually pretty accepting of LGBTQ issues, they just have to be dressed up in a culturally sensitive way. Hot stuff! Maybe that Hamas Stonewall tie-up can happen after all. The Muslim Council of Hamtramck took the ban on pride flags seriously, firing liberal employees who flew the flag.
We've always welcomed folks from all over the world, all different persuasions. It didn't matter.
In July, Russ Gordon and Kathy Stackpole lost their position on the Hamtramck Human Relations Commission after raising an LGBTQ flag on Joseph Campo Avenue.
Within 2.5 hours, it was down. One of the council people saw it, called the mayor, they called city manager called the police in, and the flag was down.
Council member Khalil Rifai said in a statement, "We were elected by the people of the community to make these decisions, and they not only violated the resolution, but the trust of the whole community by doing this. For this reason, Council felt the appropriate response was to remove them from the public positions of trust." So some right-on lefty council staff, the sort of people who get us fired for misgendering, by which I mean correctly gendering, were fired themselves for a law that they helped to bring in. For maximum schadenfreude, the guys who were fired were clearly total fannies. They posted stuff like this on Facebook. "Imagine how much more diversity would be embraced in America if all the images we had of Jesus were of the brown-haired, dark-skinned people they were, rather than the blue-eyed, white-skinned people that they weren't." Well, enjoy your diversity, guys. I hope the social media virtue signalling points you picked up for this make up for not having a job anymore. Truly, architects of their own destruction. But see how Islamist laws can become the law when demographics reach a tipping point? Similarly, in Denmark, we've seen a return of blasphemy laws to prevent Quran burning. This is a major step back from the liberal, secular ideals of the Enlightenment and a return to the religious absolutism of medieval times, an endarkenment, if you like. This breaches universal human rights of freedom of religion or belief and freedom of expression. There are 13 countries in the world where blasphemy is punishable by death, such as Iran, where people are regularly executed for insulting the Prophet, and Denmark took a step towards being one of them. You think I'm being alarmist? Iran used to be a relatively free and tolerant country, and Islamists aren't afraid of using thuggery to push their agenda and intimidate their critics. Don't take it from me, here's a man with the most Muslim name ever, Mohammed Hijab, publicly threatening anyone who criticises Islamic symbols, including Douglas Murray.
You don't think we have gangsters? We have Muslim gangsters as well. And when you go ahead and attack the sacred symbols of Islam, although our approach is not to do so, we can't stop the gangsters from dealing with you or anyone else. We can't stop the Muslim gangsters from dealing with you or anyone else. Just like if you go to Colombia and you speak about particular cartel in a specific manner, go to their area and be a man and speak about them.
Lovely stuff. While Western progressives insist on helping Muslims into power, those with experience of Islamism offer warnings. Here's His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan of the United Arab Emirates. He was the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
One of my friends is emigrating to the Gulf, partly to pay less tax, but partly because, in his words, they've got a grip on Islamism there, whereas Britain is blind to where it's heading. People emigrate to the West because they want the prosperity, stability and personal freedom that a liberal society provides, and which isn't available under the corrupt, intolerant, poverty-stricken hellhole that arises from medieval cultures that stifle freedom. But they don't become imbued with Western values when they step on British soil. Their culture doesn't evaporate on the boat ride to the West. Sometimes it gets stronger as people cling to an identity in a foreign culture. I know people say, oh, but surely we're decades away from demographic change. Demographics is destiny. In 1970, 70% of Hamtramck was ethnically Polish American. By 2020, it was 10%. Those years go past quickly. Immigration is running at nearly 1.3 million people a year to this little island. And unlike climate-obsessed native Brits, Muslims still believe in having kids instead of buying a cat. So it's not going to take long for the change to happen.
It's clear that this resolution was done to pacify the religious sentiment of part of the city. And you're not supposed to pass laws based on that. It's just wrong. There's a separation of church and state. This is United States of America. That's how we do things.
In this country, you can be who you want to be. Religion and politics have to be totally separate.
But under Islamism, they're usually not. Just look at Iran or Afghanistan. Every aspect of government, policy, law, and the executive is just another tool to propagate religious values and control people. Centuries of history suggest that Islam is not compatible with liberal democracy. Turkey used to have a semblance of democracy, but its Islamist leader Erdogan regularly wins a Putin-esque 128% of the vote. No Middle Eastern country except Israel has a working democracy. North Africa has had one. Pakistan has historically been a military dictatorship interspersed with brief periods of sham democracy that seem more like an excuse to assassinate politicians than provide representative government. Indonesia is ostensibly a democracy, but has a history of dictatorship and is becoming more hardline Islamist. There are examples closer to home. Belgium's Islam Party got 2 members elected in 2012. It wants to separate men and women on public transport, bring in Sharia law, and aims to create an Islamic state in Belgium.
Muslims are still a minority in Belgium, but in the capital of Brussels, they're already the largest religious group, 1/4 of the city's population, and are expected to be the majority in less than 20 years. The most confrontational Muslim group here is Sharia for Belgium, which used shouting and threats to shut down a debate by moderate Muslims a few months ago. I sat down and talked to the leader of Sharia for Belgium, Fouad Boukassem, alias Abu Imran.
We believe that the Sharia will dominate. The Sharia will be implemented worldwide. Sharia is Islam, to be clear. There is no difference between Islam and Sharia. It's just a name. Democracy is the opposite of Sharia and Islam. We believe that Allah is the legislator. Allah makes the laws. He is the one who tells us what's allowed and what's forbidden.
I know some Muslims who think of themselves as Democrats and they say they're against Sharia. Are they real Muslims?
Yeah, it's really funny when I hear someone saying, yeah, I was speaking to a democratic Muslim. It's the same thing as saying I was speaking to a Christian Jew or to a Jewish Muslim or something like that. It's impossible. How could you meet a Jewish Muslim or a Christian Jew? And a Muslim that says he's against Sharia, he's not a Muslim. It's impossible.
The most common baby name in Brussels for 4 years running has been Mohammed. You think it's a matter of time before Muslims are the majority here?
Yeah, of course. Even the disbelievers themselves, they say that in 2030, something like that, there will be a majority Muslims here in Belgium. Even the city, Antwerp, more than 40% of the children in the schools are Muslims. So it's just a matter of time. No problem. We don't have any problem.
It's all diversity and inclusion until enough are included, and then it's their way or the fair way. Is that even a saying? And even closer to home, the Islamic Party of Britain was founded in September 1989 by Muslims who had grown dissatisfied with the Labour Party and felt that no mainstream political parties represented their needs, such as the death penalty for homosexuals.
Prayer was top of the agenda for Britain's first religious party as they prepared for today's launch. Its leaders hoped to present Islam to the British electorate in the language of conventional politics. with a manifesto, a constitution and a full team of shadow spokesmen. Britain's Muslims have been politicised by the Rushdie affair, but neither Conservative nor Labour have felt able to champion their cause. The Islamic Party's policies include extending the blasphemy laws to cover Islam, promoting Islamic State schools, and replacing interest rates with Islamic-style profit-sharing. Geography may help the new party. Muslims are often concentrated in close-knit communities in city constituencies. Some of the highest concentrations are in marginal Labour seats.
Clearly, any party that draws from Labour's traditional voting strength is a party that needs to be taken seriously.
As well as public executions for gays, they also felt that nobody was representing their interests regarding Salman Rushdie, their interests meaning him being executed for writing a book. I'm sure they had other policies that didn't revolve around executing people, but all the same, if we do get another Islamic party in Britain, I'm buying shares in whoever makes those big swords that the guy in Indiana Jones had. Although the Islamic Party of Britain didn't win any seats, we've seen Muslims take power at the regional level in Britain, such as London Mayor Sadiq Khan, whose police force are currently letting pro-Palestinian mobs desecrate war memorials, but are arresting any men who have the temerity to describe them as terrorists, even though they're literally dressed as terrorists.
So by shouting at them, you may be committing a public order offence, for which you can be arrested. From what they're telling me, you may have committed an offence. That gives me the right to keep hold of you until I can discuss this and find out if you have committed any offences.
I've committed no offence, mate.
In your opinion?
Yeah, my opinion. And Hamas not a terrorist organisation?
Hamas are a prescribed organisation, yeah.
So terrorist sympathisers in. Terrorism
do
on our
you,
streets.
Do you understand where
I understand fully. I've had enough of it, mate. Everywhere you go in the UK at the moment, this shit's going on. Well, do you not think we've had enough of it? You've probably had enough of it, dealing with it.
They've got a legitimate right to peaceful protest, and my job is to allow
And I've got a right to say terrorist organisation, Hamas.
Sadiq is a moderate Muslim who supports Pride, but he's still happy to share a platform with extremists.
Suleiman Ghani, who is a supporter of Islamic State, you appeared on a platform with him 9 times. During one of these times, you must have found out what he really believed in.
There are lots of campaigns and issues that I've been involved in as Chair of Liberty, as a human rights lawyer, and as a politician, which had cross-party support from...
Do you regret appearing on platforms with people like that?
No, I regret giving the impression
And he'll never be called a bigot for doing so, but anyone who criticises him for it will. Birmingham City Council is a large Muslim component and oversaw schools which had, according to The Guardian, been taken over to ensure they were run on strict Islamic principles. According to a report, officials were afraid of stepping in to stop it in case they were accused of racism or Islamophobia. Sound familiar? It's just like the security guard who failed to raise the alarm about the Manchester Arena bomber, or the authorities who looked the other way in Rotherham. So much evil happens out of fear of looking racist. Birmingham City Council also reportedly endorsed Muslim sectarianism against Ahmadi Muslims. This is a sect who face violent persecution for their openness and friendliness, which are seen as bad. My brother's local corner shop in Glasgow was run by an Ahmadi Muslim who was killed outside his shop hours after he had posted on Facebook, "A very happy Easter to my beloved Christian nation." But did the situation in Birmingham at least lead to fiscal prudence? No. Birmingham City Council was declared bankrupt, brought down by what the left-wing media describe as financial incompetence, but what actually looks like very competent fraud. It turns out that handing out millions of pounds to your uncles and cousins for a few taxi journeys isn't a viable way to run a council. Looks like the greatest theft of money from the British public to a nepotistic cult since the BBC licence fee. Similarly, Tower Hamlets Council in London had to be taken into special measures by the government due to a culture of cronyism risking the corrupt spending of public funds. There weren't just allegations of financial fraud, the mayor of Tower Hamlets, Lutfer Rahman, was accused of electoral fraud. If only there were some prior examples of anti-democratic shenanigans in the Muslim world that could have acted as a warning. According to a Labour politician, Rahman was brainwashed by Muslim fundamentalists before running for office, although this would assume the presence of a brain and some soap. You might think that Muslim members breaking away to form a new party would be terrible for Keir Starmer. Labour have had 10 front bench resignations and 57 Labour MPs defied Keir to vote for an Israeli ceasefire to give Hamas time to rearm and plan their next massacre, which is the kind and inclusive thing to do apparently. But look, Keir has sanitised the Labour Party and purged the crankies, tankies and Islamists to bury the memory of Corbyn and appeal to Middle England. The biggest threat to Keir is these voters getting scared off by the resurgence of the rabidly anti-Semitic terror-filleting Islamism of the Corbyn years, which went hand in hand with decidedly un-British socialism. This further purge signals to voters that Keir is is strong, ruthless and centrist. And although I haven't supported the Labour Party ever since I became an adult, I'd rather be ruled over by a centrist Labour Party than a Corbynite one, even if the difference comes down to the country being destroyed a bit slower. So I'm eating from a budget supermarket instead of eating from a bin. But this isn't the reason I'm looking forward to an Islamic political party. Having a separate party of Islam, unconstrained by being part of a mainstream party, will allow their ideas more visibility and alert people to the consequences of rapid demographic change in Britain. Imagine members of Parliament putting forward motions to outlaw pride flags in the UK or provide nuclear weapons to Hamas. Imagine these attitudes in Parliament.
But are there things that happen at protests that could be haram, that are absolutely impossible to escape? For example, free mixing with women, at the very least. Men and women mixing with each other. Is that not something that is necessary at the protest, yes or no? Let's not talk about other things. Let's not talk about the salah time that gets missed. Let's not talk about what? Standing next to what? A guy that's going to take it in the backside at night. Because that's who you're protesting with. That's who you're protesting with. Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that. At the very least, is it not that men and women are coming and free mixing together?
It would sharpen minds pretty quickly. But the main reason I'm looking forward to it is that they'll help with the pushback against wokeism. We've already seen Muslims ally with conservatives to get sexualised books out of schools. A lot of positive attributes are echoed in conservative and Muslim cultures. Respect, family, working hard to better yourself, and I support gay rights, but the progress flag is a political flag, so I think it's right to not fly it on public property. No, the people who are going to suffer are going to be the progressives who insist that diversity is a strength, and the best thing is, they're scared of criticising Muslims in case other progressives call them racist. Muslims don't have to tiptoe around. It's literally part of their religion, so leftists are being Islamophobic if they criticise them. Islamism will devour the progressives that encourage it, and it's going to be hilarious to watch. Listen, my videos always get barred from running ads because of controversial topics or whatever, so I'm running my own ads. If you want to support me making these videos and see more unfiltered content, then you can sign up to my Patreon. There's a link below. It's like a special club for cool people who want to see more stuff. And if you're thinking, ooh Leo, I don't want to get lumbered into a Patreon subscription, I have to watch all your long-winded self-indulgent live streams, but I do want to buy stuff off the internet to help sharpen my critical thinking skills or calm my mind from the accelerating mania of modern life, well, I'm advertising stuff I actually use. This range of neurotropic products from highpoint.care. Do you have trouble relaxing given that civilization is hell-bent on destroying itself? Did you used to be a massive stoner and don't partake anymore but miss the mellowed out phase of a session? Do you want to deal with inflammation? Well, I've partnered with High Point Care to get you 10% off with the code LEO. That's L-E-O. These guys are pioneers in the world of nutraceuticals. I've been in their laboratory. It's like a Wuhan lab. White coats, test tubes, the lot. But Leo, everybody's flogging CBDBs these days. Yeah, it's not just CBDBs. They've developed all kinds of formulations to pull your mind and body in a certain direction while still staying perfectly legal and healthy. Whether it's insomnia, inflammation, mental acuity, there's a formulation just for you. I just like taking the one that gives you a boner because I like walking around with a boner all day. But their stuff is the best. It's nano-engineered so it doesn't get broken down in your gut. It reaches where it's actually effective. And you get 10% off at highpoint.care with the code LEO. That's L-E-O. Ooh, but some other wanker gives 40% off some other thing. Listen, this isn't some dodgy mass-produced Chinese garbage shipped here in big plastic barrels. This is artisanal stuff scraped off fairies' wings by real wizards. And you can get 10% off with the code LEO. You won't get more off with any other code. So go and click on highpoint.care and go and buy some now. And you're going to love this. It's halal. You can stay within the scripture and get mildly neurotropic. And if the Islamic morality police stop you in a few years' time and find it in your bag, they won't smash it and whip the soles of your feet. Also, if you want to see me live, I'm doing a special show with the bad boys of comedy, the absolute mad lad Count Dankula and the bad lad of global jihad Darius Davies on December the 15th in London. It'll be an insane show. The venue's yet to be announced. We can't announce it because wet wipes with green hair and pronouns will phone up and get it cancelled. But it's central, it's South London. The link is below. Also, please like and subscribe to get notified about my next video, which is going to be about the rise and fall of BLM, or Greta, or ESG and EDI. I'm not totally sure yet. Anyway, thanks for listening. I've been Leo Kearse. Bye. Bye-bye.